Aloha. Hello, I am Geralyn. Of course, now that I'm going to be live on air, I'm getting a million phone calls, which I did not get all day long. So I need to shut my phone off, and that way it'll just be us, you know? Today, what we're talking about is purging. So, what do I mean by that? What is a purge? A purge is when, hold on a second, ugh, my hair is being unruly. Um, So today we're talking about a purge. What do I mean by a purge? By a purge, I mean getting rid of, letting go of, um, and just removing from your energetic field any and all things that are holding you back or holding you down. We're going to talk about what that feels like. Mostly what we're going to be focusing on are emotional things and things that hold on to you spiritually. So, although there will be some physical things that go along with that, we're talking more about where do you have resentment? Where are you holding grudges? What is triggering you and why? So, before we begin, I'm your host, Geralyn St. Joseph. I move my hands a lot. I have an Italian background. And I would love to see your questions. I would love the interaction. I am a naturally born psychic intuitive. I have also used that gift in helping to coach people in their relationships. I call myself a relationship empowerment coach. And it's more about empowering the individuals in order to be able to have the best possible outcome for their relationships. I work a lot with people who are either in romantic relationships or familial relationships where there's some kind of an issue, and we learn how to communicate better and we learn about what the crux of the issue is, because it's not the dishes. It's not that you didn't do the dishes. It's that there's other stuff under that, and then you didn't do the dishes, which made things so much worse. Now, let's move forward. Okay, so why is it a good time to purge right now? If we talk about right now in this moment, we're at a new moon, and astrologically, things are pretty good for purging. However, that is not the way I like to couch things, because I feel like whenever you find this video, it's going to be the time for you to really sit down and consider these things. You're not going to be able to achieve everything that we're talking about during the video. You need pencil, you need paper, you should have some place where you could go and really cultivate these thoughts. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm giving you an outline of what is necessary, the things you want to consider as you're doing this. And it's not all going to happen all at one time. I can tell you that much. Oftentimes, it's like an onion, it's very layered. So, your first layer are the things that come to mind right away. So, when we talk about, um, what is or who is top of mind right now, who is annoying me? Who do I need to let go of? Who is not actually necessarily around me, but things still remind me of them. They're still like in my brain. They have taken up space in my head and they're not paying any rent. Who is this? What are they doing and why? So, for instance, one of the things that I did today as part of this purge, excuse me, is I went through my email. Now, I've had the same email. I've used the same email since I don't even know. It was like 2007, maybe 2008, somewhere around there. So it has a lot of email in there. And because of things that have happened to me in the past, one of the things that I do is I will write everything down. I have notebooks, I have like diaries, I have blogs. But in my email, also, anything that I think might come back, I hold on to. So when I've worked with people or I've worked on different projects, to prove that I've done this work, I hold on to the emails. because several times in my life, I've been in situations where people have not given me credit where credit was due, or flat out denied that I did any work at all and just stole everything that I did. That happened very early in my career. And because of that, it forced me almost to start I make notes on everything. It's something that you'll see with people who have been in different types of uncomfortable situations, um, or been in a family maybe situation where things are taken, or if there's somebody who's gaslighting. I had a cousin who just was gaslighted everybody so hard that at one point my father came to me and he's like, we never went to Disney World, did we?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, she keeps telling me all these memories she has of us in Disney World." I said, "Well, it's all fantasy because we never went to Disney World." And so being around people like that, you learn how to document so that I could say, "No, it's right here. This was the date. This was the time. This is what happened." To the point that when I had cameras and things like that, where I would just document everything. And it came in really handy at work several times where I would document things because I would have like I'd be a manager and a general manager would try to steal the thunder from what I was doing. So, for instance, I worked movie theaters and I was at the Regal Huntington Valley and we were opening up, what was the name of it? It was about the Civil War. It was like a 4-hour movie. Huge. And what I had done to prepare for the movie was I got all these reenactors to come. So the opening of the movie at our theater was going to be like phenomenal. We had over 100 reenactors coming. We were going to show it on 2 screens. I had the guys coming and they were going to be full in their gear and standing at the entrance and all the way like you would have to walk through them to get to the theaters and then they would welcome you to the theater. And I had television stations coming. We had all this radio play. It was one of my favorite things to do was promotions back in the day. So the day that this is supposed to happen, my boss is like, "Oh, you don't he didn't schedule me for that day." He's like, "You don't have to come in." "What do you mean I don't have to come in? I'm the point of contact. Like, I have, like, all these things. I can handle it," he says. He did not want me to be on camera because he wanted to say that it was his idea and that he did everything. So, luckily for me, I tend to be very, effusive when I'm doing things, and I talk to people about it, and people see what I'm doing. I get different people's opinions and things like that. But also, the vice president of the company, from the day we opened, he really liked me because I would do, like, 4 promotions almost a week. Like, during the summertime, it was constant. I was doing different promotions and pulling people in, and we would have movies and sell them out longer than any other theater in the United States and things like that because of different things that we were doing where we had all these tie-ins. It was just a lot of fun for me. But my manager, the general manager, did not like to give me credit for anything that I was doing. So he would apparently we were supposed to write up something about it and he would send it in like he did it. The vice president knew that I was the one doing it because I was calling him and talking to him about different things, and he was giving me some ways to get, like, bigger prizes and things like that. So, it was, like, a really weird, situation, but again, I had to document everything. I kept everything in writing. Now, this was in the early to mid '90s. I think it was, like, 93 going into '94. I still have pictures from the promotions I did. I still have write-ups. I still have, some of the things that went into the newspaper, but I have the work that I did prepping for this because of what had happened to me. And I always have this fear that if I get rid of things, that at some point, then somebody is gonna come and be like, "Oh, really? You did that? How do I know you did that?" Mind you, I've never had anybody do that to me, ever. I had a reputation in the theaters. You know, I don't know. People don't question me that often, but I always had in the back of my head, if they did, I have all this evidence. So today, what I did, fighting every instinct in my body, was I went through my past emails, and I got rid of all these trigger points, I'm gonna say. They were all emails that had so much emotion in it for me because I was fighting to prove myself, or something went sideways and I had to use them as evidence, like all different kinds of things. And as I'm looking at them before I'm deleting them, not reading every one, but I'm looking at what I'm deleting. It was so freeing. And that's part of what brought me to this place where I'm like, we need to get rid of stuff now. Energetically, what we want to be doing is lifting ourselves up and lifting others up with us. It's all about raising our vibration and raising the vibration of the planet as a whole so that we all have the benefits of what is occurring. A great way to do that is by purging. And honestly, this is something we need to do. Like, people talk about spring cleaning. It's basically the same thing, but we're going to go a little bit deeper. Spring cleaning, we look at the dirt that has accumulated that year, we go through, we change things around, we shift the energy. That's awesome. Now we're doing it on a deeper level. So I want you to ask yourself some of these questions. This is going to be kind of like a life review, except you're doing it for yourself. You're going to sit with yourself and take several deep breaths. And we've done this many times. We breathe in deeply, you hold it, and then you let it out really slowly. So we'll do it a couple of times as we start, and then I'm going to go through some of the questions and why I'm asking those questions. Okay? Are you ready? Back straight, feet flat on the floor if you can. I'm short. That's not always possible. I do my best though. Okay? Take a deep breath. And let it go. And again, take a deep breath and release it slowly. Relax. I want you to continue breathing deeply as we move through this because you are going to hit things that are going to be triggering for you. What grudges are you holding on to? We're thinking all the way back. And the way to figure out what grudges we're holding on to, one of the ways is to think about, are there people or instances that will pop into your head in different situations that aren't necessarily related to that? But it's like right there, like it reminds you right away. It's almost like a trigger. So I just told you about the movie theater I worked in, and the manager that I worked under that was not very honest, was not a good manager at all. And so that's something I'm letting go. I'm letting go of the paperwork. Like, I'm burning that stuff at this point. It serves no purpose. We're 30 years out at this point. There's no reason to hold on to things. So I'm letting it go. And as I burn it and I let it go, or I shred it, I get rid of it, however I'm going to do that, it frees up part of my energy because that thing is no longer there holding on to it. And maybe what I need to do is sit there and grab a book and write down how I'm feeling about it. What was the problem, or who was the problem? What happened, how I felt about it, and how I feel now. And then say goodbye to it. And what you can do as you're writing is at the end of it, say, "This is now closed." I resolve my feelings on this issue. I acknowledge my part in it, and I forgive myself for getting into it and let it go. Giving yourself permission to move away from it is a really big deal. It's a really major part of the process because anybody can say that, "Oh, I let it go. I'm free. It's all right. It's fine." When the truth is that when things are sunk really deeply into our energetic, that it changes our behavior moving forward in a way that is not necessarily healthy in the long term. We need to acknowledge that, and we need to acknowledge our part in it and the part of whoever else was in it. And I say we need to acknowledge our part because a lot of times what we do is we're so angry with ourselves for putting ourselves in that situation, for getting into that how could I have done that? How dumb was I? Why did I do that? Why did I say it that way? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? So acknowledging what you did, where you were at that time, like at that I was in my early 20s at that point. This was not like I was a well-seasoned person and I was coming out of something that was traumatic before then. I am not meant to work in like big companies. I figured that out fairly early in my career, but that was something that spirit was trying to show me. At that time, I didn't recognize that that's what was happening. All I saw was that I kept getting these jobs, doing really well in these jobs, and getting smacked upside the head for doing well in the job, and then I would leave. So, seeing what those cycles are for you might show you what is it that you need to learn from it. Like, are there really villains sometimes? Or is it more that spirit is putting you in a situation, or you're entering a situation where you're meant to learn something from it, and maybe you're just choosing not to, or maybe you don't see it yet. Figuring out what that lesson is a big push forward also, and it's much easier to let go of those things when you recognize, all right, this is why this was happening. This is what I was doing, this is what they were doing, and this is why oil and water don't mix. Holding grudges is a holding a grudge is a strong term. You may want to say like resentment. You hold a resentment towards this person, or you're holding some anger or some frustration. However, you want to call it, whatever you want to say it is, whatever verbiage you want to use it, but be very honest. If you're not honest with yourself, you're not accomplishing anything. So I could say all day long that I don't hold grudges, but I can tell you a handful of people that I would never sit at a table with again. Maybe that's a grudge, maybe it's a boundary, but there's definitely anger and resentment wrapped up in that. So I want to get rid of those emotions. I don't necessarily need to get rid of the boundary. One of my favorite sayings is just because I love you doesn't mean I want to have you in the middle of my living room. I can love you from afar. There are some people in my life that I love dearly, but I know together we don't, not a good mix. So it's best if we stay in our own lane and every once in a while touch base. But we're not supposed to be enmeshed with one another. It's not supposed to be this, grand thing that we have with one another. So moving forward, who is taking space in your head rent free? Who is it that is just top of mind? Maybe you mention their name, or maybe there's somebody who's in your circle and their name gets mentioned to you. I have had different friendships that maybe over a long period of time, all of a sudden they end, or maybe we just grow in different directions. I tend to see it that way, even though, many times that's not necessarily what happened, like, they really were mad at me and I just didn't recognize it because I didn't feel like, anything was really wrong because it was over a difference of opinion that I didn't feel was, you know, that big a deal. You're not gonna have the same opinions as everybody around you. Um, that's one of the things too, is that we don't want to dismiss people just because they don't have the same point of view that we do. Just because they don't agree with something that we said or something that we believe in, that is totally unnecessary and actually very unhealthy. It's better for you to be surrounded by people who have a diversity of different ideas, different lifestyles, different viewpoints. I often get made fun of for having a really eclectic group of friends. When I used to come back from Hawaii to Philly and visit, I would get everybody together because I would never have enough time to see everybody. So we would just do this huge dinner and I would have them like 20, 25 people there and we'd all hang out and have a good time. And a couple of my friends came to me afterwards. They're like, I would never have become friends with these people if you hadn't introduced me to them because they're just not the kind of people I would hang around. Not anything disparaging, but, you like rock, you like disco, maybe you have other things in common. So knowing that that diversity helps give you a better, more rounded view of the world, it's best to surround yourself with people, not people necessarily that are argumentative or who disagree with everything, but people who have different viewpoints so you can discuss things. I think that's something that's been lost, at least in America, is that we don't debate anymore. Like, there's this idea that somebody has to win the argument. Well, maybe it's not an argument, maybe it's just a discussion, and maybe it gets heated here and there, but that doesn't mean that one of you is right and one of you is wrong. It just means that you have different viewpoints, you're coming from different perspectives. And it's so much harder to see somebody else's perspective if you have never walked beside them, if you've never listened to them, if you've never been in that space. I'm an urban kid. I grew up inner city. I grew up South Philly. It was a very different experience than the kids I went to high school with. And I really have to be grateful to my parents and especially my mother who pushed for us to go to school outside of the city so that we could see, how the other half lives or however you want to say it. But they definitely had very different lives than I did. So granting yourself that, looking for that, entering conversations fearlessly, truthfully, and unadulterated who you are. Doesn't mean that you act like a jerk, but that you express what you truly feel actually allows the other people around you to discuss what they truly feel. And you being authentic allows them to be authentic. And then you just create better relationships all across the board. Now, some people can't deal with authenticity because they don't understand nuance or they don't want nuance. They just want to be in their echo chamber. But as much as we can chip away at that kind of behavior, the more healthy our society becomes. Because the more we interact with one another and get to know each other, the less hostility there will be. Ignorance breeds anger, it breeds hostility, it breeds fear. I mean, that hostility comes from fear. It's a fear of the unknown. And it's totally unnecessary, especially now with as much communication venues as we have. I talk to people all over the world at this point, and I'm still learning things and seeing things. Like, we think that every place is just like where we are. It's not. And to recognize that and actually be friends with, or at least an acquaintance with, someone who is in a completely different space than you are is important because that's growth. That's how you expound on yourself and how you learn more and you learn about compassion, real compassion, not canned compassion, not the, oh, these poor people, all of X group is, oh, they're so, everything's so bad and blah, 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 but not really learning about what they have, where they're at, what makes them happy, what are their goals, how is it different than mine, how does their system work differently than mine, like what's it like for them getting health care? What is it like for them if they get sick? Like, what is it like for them as they get old? Do the families support them, or do they just put them in a home or something? All these things are important to learn about one another. And as we discuss that, America itself, the United States of America, is so large that we have encapsulated within it all these different cultures. We are the melting pot. And we have all these different cultures. Like when I went from East Coast to living in Hawaii, whoa, totally different. And I'm from Philly, which is like in and of itself a different kind of a place. We're very straightforward. And in Hawaii, they're not straightforward. They're more roundabout. They're still truthful, they're true authentic, but the way they speak is different. So my being very straightforward and very blunt was very like they were like, "Are you mad?" I'm not mad. My friend even had a shirt that said, "I'm not mad. I'm just from Philly," because a lot of times our tone of voice would be taken as anger, but that's not what it was. So once you get to know somebody, then you know that. Which reminds me of another story. Maybe this is going to be story time today. I was up in Maine working at for a congregation, and we were all gathered. It was like the heads of the church were gathered and whatnot, and we were discussing different things. So we're in this hall, and most of the people, I probably was one of the youngest people there, and we're talking, well, it was 10 years ago, so I was in my late 40s. Most of them were like, we're talking 70s, 80s. We're getting older people. And the person who was speaking to us would speak kind of, they're speaking kind of softly. So when I would answer, I would project my voice. And when I asked questions, I would project my voice because the people around us could not hear them, couldn't hear the other person. And the other person was like, I would really appreciate it if you stopped yelling at me. I said, well, I would appreciate it if you projected your voice so that everybody could hear what you're saying because it is a meeting. And she was very like taken aback, was like, oh, everything's fine. Then like five of the people were like, I cannot hear a thing you're saying. If she was not repeating what you were saying, I would not know what was going on. So it's about perspective. Figuring out the perspectives of others is what compassion is about. It's not about just giving and giving and giving and not paying attention to where your giving is working. It's about knowing what to give and how to give. And it's about knowing what other people are going through and how they feel. I am getting off track. All of this is to say that whether we cognitively think so or not, we all have resentments. We all hold grudges to a certain extent. It's what they look like might be different. We all have people and places and things that take up space in our head, and now is the time to purge. Why is it healthy for us to purge these things? It's healthy to purge these things because what they're doing is they create a sense of like low level anxiety, possibly depression, because you're always looking out for whatever that hurt was. Resentment, um, holding grudges, things like that always come from being hostile, comes from a wound, generally speaking. Not going to say it's always that way, but the majority of the time there's a wound behind it. And if you can get to the wound behind it and fix that, then you're okay. That being said, it's not your job to solve everybody else's problems. Some people like the way they are and they don't want to feel better. As crazy as that may sound. They are comfortable with the way they feel. They felt this way always. This is the way they want to continue to feel, and that's it. They don't want help. They don't want to feel better. and they don't want to hear it. They just want to be. And that's their choice. They can have that choice. It's hard to live with for the people around them, but they can make that choice and that can be their choice. You have no right to force them into something else because what you consider feeling better to them feels uncomfortable because they've never felt that way. That's not the way their system is wired anymore at this point. But you don't want to be wired that way. You don't want to be wired to the point where you have to have anxiety. You have to be worried about something. Something's got to be going on. Otherwise, you don't feel comfortable. So, who triggers you? I want you to take your pen and very quickly jot down 5 names just off the top of your head. Don't think about it. Don't think about why they trigger you or how they trigger you. Just answer the question: who triggers you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you're watching this later, you can pause in order to write them down. And then you could unpause it as we move forward. Once you have those 5 names, those are your top 5. And you're going to, after this, you're going to go through and keep digging for yourself. It's good to have a partner in this also so that you have somebody that you're bouncing ideas off of and talking your way through this. Because it's good for you to write things down on paper and process it that way. But it's also good for you to have someone, even if it's a therapist. I mean, therapists can be great. Someone to talk to about it, to process it. And some people are better verbally, and other people are better writing. Some people are better using their voice vocally. So you need to figure out what's going to work for you. Once you have these 5 people down, we're going to parse them out now. You're going to look at each person and you're going to think, all right, what is the issue? What is the core issue? So, like for my boss who would steal all my ideas and say that he did all the hard work that I did and try to get, because we would get bonuses and stuff for it. He would try to get the bonus and not give it to me. So, what was the core issue there? Well, the core issue for me was a sense of betrayal. I was being used. I was not being acknowledged for what I was bringing to the table. And he was trying to use his authority over me. But what was the real core issue? What's the real problem? Well, problem was he was insecure. He wasn't very good at his job, and I was. And there was even a point in time where the home office, because we had an emergency, told the staff and the rest of the managers to tell everyone that I was the general manager for a certain amount of time before this one incident, because the general manager did not deal with it well. So they were like, just send everybody to her. She's the manager. She's dealing with this. Boom, boom, boom. But then when we received letters and stuff saying thank you and how well things were handled and everything, then the general manager took that as being him and didn't want to give me credit once again. So that was something that kept happening. So what was my issue? My issue was that, first off, there was betrayal because I didn't realize it was happening in the beginning. Secondly, there was a sense of not being appreciated and being angry at myself for not standing up for myself and doing more to make sure that I was seen for what I was doing. So as you go through it, you like really chunk it down to what the core thing is. What is the core thing? The core thing is I felt like I was being taken advantage of, and I was, as I had been previously. So it was like, okay, I'm getting into this cycle. I keep getting into the same cycle. Like, why? Why do I keep getting into this cycle? And then that may bring you back to another resentment that's further down the line, or another wound that's further down the line that's before this one that created the fertile ground for this to happen. And that's what we're looking for. Where did the fertile ground come from? We want to chunk it all the way down. Right now, we're still at the surface level. So we have this incident, this person. And this person, what do we still have that connects us to this instance or this person? Do you still own anything of theirs? Did they give you a gift at any point? Which is funny because this is reminding me, he gave me this beautiful bag. It was a briefcase, like this beautiful briefcase, a leather briefcase, gorgeous. My friend helped him pick it out, and that was right in the beginning before he started to manipulate everything. So it's like I had that bag for a really long time, so I got rid of that bag. Um, didn't have email back then, so there's none of that. There are pictures. Get rid of the pictures. Do I have my notes from all the different things that I did back then? I still have pictures of different promotions that I did and letters um, from the upper echelon and all that. Now I'm at a point where I cannot go back into the corporate world, and I'm not going to go back into the corporate world. So all this stuff, even though it kind of makes me feel good when I got things directly, there's an undertone to some of the things where, like, he was trying to take credit for it. So do I really need this anymore? I don't need to prove that I did all these things. I have proven myself over and over and over again throughout the years for different businesses, different places where I worked, different bosses. Do I need this? Is there anything in here that I really need? Is there anything in here that I need to save because it makes me feel good or because it just reminds me that there was a good part of this, that there was something that was going on with this that was good? And get rid of everything that you can. If you have the means to burn it, burn it. You could put it in water, you could shred it, you can bury it. There's all different ways. You could just throw it in the trash, but make sure that you allow yourself the time and to be present when you're doing it, to acknowledge what you're doing and why you're doing it. So be very present in the moment and allow yourself to really get rid of that, push it out. You don't need that. So we do this with each person on our list. And oftentimes we'll find like there might be somebody on the list, and then we realize that, oh, wait a second. What created that fertile ground was this person who came before. And I was wounded, and then this person jumped in. Okay, so we release that. So the first way is physically to release it, to physically purge, physically get rid of it. You're removing from your energetic anything that does not serve your highest and greatest good. Whatever doesn't serve your highest purpose. And if we look at things, it's just like when you're clearing out a house. Oh, what is it called? There's a something death cleaning. Was it Australian death cleaning? There was some kind of death cleaning where you would go through the house and prepare it for when you pass so that people don't have a bunch of crap to go through. So it's kind of doing the same thing. You're holding on to only the things, like Marie Kondo says, only the things that bring you joy, only the things that serve a positive purpose in your life. If it's not serving a positive purpose, get rid of it. Let it go. Purge it. So when we go through and we look the other way to do this also, of course, is to do a big house cleaning. Some of us aren't great at that, where you got to do the whole house at the same time, and then other people are like, they can take a corner of a room or a room and choose a day and just go through everything in that day and look at things and ponder. And do I really need this? Is this something I really want to remember? Is this energy that I want to keep? You may find things that you forgot, that someone that you've let go of your life, let go out of your life, that you still have these things that still have their essence on it that you may wanna get rid of. Especially when you're talking about things like jewelry, like this piece of jewelry my friend Jody gave me, which is why I love it because I love her and she's such a wonderful person and she's probably one of the most pure, compassionate, loving people I've ever met. And I've been blessed to know her since grade school, but I didn't realize what kind of person she was until we got older. But I'm grateful to be friends with her now. So this is the kind of person when she gives me things or she's, gifting things to me or I'm gifting things to her, which we do quite often because we're the kind of people who if you see something and it reminds you of somebody, you pick it up for them and you just get it. Like I mentioned, I loved a stone that she had, and this is moss agate, and I love it's got a little heart. You can see the little heart window. Um, And she gave that to me, so I love it very much, and she gave me this necklace, and I love it very much, and that's wonderful, but I might look around also and see something that was either given to me by someone or maybe, like, they left it at my house, and it's someone that I no longer want that connection with. I don't wanna be around that person anymore, I don't wanna feel their energy, and it could be like, for me, a lot of times, it's probably, like, stones, it's jewelry. But it could be shirts, it could be makeup, it could be a television show that you got into with them, it could be emails, it could be anything. But go through and look through these things and feel them and feel like, "Okay, is it still okay to hold on to this? Is this does it have more of my energy? Does is it still holding on to the past? When I hold it, what kind of memories does it bring for me?" And that kind of thing. So look at those things. And emotionally, what are you still holding on to? Physically and otherwise? Are you still holding on to, hopes of a better past? One of my favorite quotes is, "Forgiveness is giving up all hopes of a better past." So it's about letting that go and acknowledging this is what happened, and maybe acknowledging this is who this person is, or this is the way this company is. You could be so enamored with something that you completely ignore red flags, and then you end up getting hurt, and then it's about trying to unravel that. So, removing things from your space, your area where you sleep, where you live, that is gonna be very helpful in getting rid of a lot of that energy, getting rid of old emails, getting rid of things that pull you down. Even if it's not something you'd be surprised how much energy things hold, even though you're not holding on to them all the time. Even though it's not something maybe that you even notice or recognize or see all the time. But if you don't want the energy of that situation or that person, you get rid of that. Then, energetically, a good way to purge all that energy, there's several different ways. I like pulling cords. And there's different ways to pull cords. I have a journey on pulling cords, and I have audios up and things like that. So, I don't think I'm gonna do one right now, but pulling cords is really good because you're releasing yourself from that energy. You're letting it go, you're purging it out of your system. But to really, really purge it is you do something a little more heavy duty. I've had people that I've worked with, one-on-one and sometimes in groups where we've done this heavy duty purging where you're really just completely pushing out and giving back all that energy to the person that has been on top of you all this time and filling up that space with white light energy, otherwise known as the Christ energy or unconditional love or universal source, whatever you want to call it. As we do this and we feel ourselves getting lighter and lighter, it feels really good. And as we really dig down into the core issues that started everything. Could be past lives, could be from when you were a kid, and you stop when you feel like you're done. Don't keep looking and looking and looking just to try and find something. When you feel comfortable with where you are, then you let it rest. You allow yourself to heal, you raise your vibration, you keep that vibration up. You stay in proximity of people, places, and things that help you keep your vibration up. That doesn't mean yes people. That doesn't mean everybody's agreeing with you all the time, but it's people and places and things that make you feel good. Maybe it's going to the park, maybe it's petting a horse, maybe it's seeing your friend's dog, all these different things it could be. Maybe it's a good debate. Maybe it's a good I don't even wanna say argument, but debate with someone that you care about where you have completely different views. I just recently did this with a friend of mine, and it was interesting because during it, like, I could feel the push-pull of it, like we were each trying to convince ourselves or each other of something. We had opposing points of view, and then at the end, we were like, "Okay, that's interesting, I'll think about it." And that was the end of it, and then all that energy just dropped, and we were right back at our base energy, which is very, very calm and nurturing and very, um, empowering to one another. Just because you don't have the same ideas about different things doesn't mean that you can't be nurturing for one another. It also doesn't mean that you can't, um, really be uplifting for one another. I know for myself, I've always enjoyed a good debate. Debate, not argument. I don't really get into very many arguments. I debate. I like to talk about facts and points of view and the way things can happen. And anybody who's watched me for any period of time knows I come at things from like it's a circular thing where I try to see every possible angle when I'm trying to solve something. I try to see as many different ways as we can to accomplish something because maybe what works for me doesn't work for you or maybe you enjoy writing. Maybe you enjoy talking into a tape. Maybe you enjoy typing it into the computer. Maybe you enjoy walking through the forest and just like dictating it on your phone. You have to do what works for you. I can give you suggestions and I can give you the core of what we need to do, but it's up to you to figure out what is the best way for you to do it. What is the best way that you will actually accomplish this task? Because I could talk to you all day long, and if you're not the type of person who's going to sit down and write things, then it's not going to happen. Maybe you need to sing it. Maybe you need to play it. Maybe you play an instrument. Maybe you need to draw it. Like there's so many different ways to get energy out and to purge. And whatever way works for you, that's what you do. Tonight, I want you to sit down and off the top of your head, you do those five. What five people or situations do I hold resentment for? Do I hold a grudge? Then you look at each of them and you say, okay, what is the core of this situation? You start at the level that you could see that's easy, and then you chunk down to see what the issue is, what the real issue is. And then you write it down, you sing it, you draw it, you do however you need to get it out of your energetic. And you forgive yourself for getting into the situation. You relieve yourself of that weight and all that emotion, and you move forward in creating what you want because when we purge and we move these things out of the way that are not serving us, we make space to bring in what it is we want. You in this physical being, in this physical world, there's so much space we have. There we have so much bandwidth to feel emotion and to deal with things. Some people's bandwidth is wider than others. It doesn't really matter. We get clogged up sometimes. And when that happens, we need to purge. And we purge all this senseless emotion. We purge all this wasted energy. We purge all this wasted time. We purge objects that hold that energy. We purge different stories that we've been telling that hold that energy. You're doing this for you. You're doing this to feel better. And the thing is that when we purge and we release all that negative energy, all that salt off of our tail that's holding us back and holding us down, when we let that go, we make space for what it is we want for this and better. We make space for our highest potential. We make space for our highest good. And that space will be filled. So you want to direct what's coming into that space because the universe abhors a vacuum and they will fill it with whatever's nearby. And you don't want just whatever's nearby. You want to consciously call in what you want in that space, which would be white light. The white light healing, white light contains all things. It can become all things, but at its source, it is pure unconditional love. And that's where we want to start from, is that sense of absolute love and excitement for being in the world, for being physical, love for the people around us, for our society, for the stars in the sky, for Mother Earth, and for so much that we have. Whatever it is, love for that glass of water, love for anything that you need. The key is to be conscious. When we do these things consciously, it gives us the ability and the power to move forward in strength, confidence, and compassion. And you can only be compassionate when you are truly powerful in your soul, when you have a good sense of self and a good connection to God, whether you want to call it source or the universe or however you want to term it. God doesn't care. That energetic is nothing but love and is nothing but potential. So take that void and do something with it. Pull the energy in that you want. Get rid of the energy that you don't want. And the thing is, things get so stagnant, we don't even recognize that it's still there until we start to look, until we start to dig. So anyone who wants to work with me, I have several different websites. GeralynSt.Joseph.com. I also have relationship coach GSJ.com. You could look down below, and if you enjoy these live streams and you enjoy the videos I put up, I put a lot of material up that's for free in order to help me maintain doing this. If you just buy me a cup of coffee, that's down there in the link, or if you want to join this station and this channel as a member, that would be awesome. My name is Geralyn St. Joseph. I am a psychic intuitive and a relationship empowerment coach. And I will see you next time. Blessings and mahalo.